Get Rich Slow with John Wolf. Well, here today I am again with Grant Headley, and why don't you just bring up the conversation phone call we had last night? Do you remember?
Yeah, John. So yesterday, I worked a full week, and I was feeling like kind of stressed and whatever. And then I happened to fill my free hours on a Friday evening with a bunch of outside work meetings. Mm-hmm. One of my acquaintances, he just started working for a big major life insurance company that you've all heard of. And I was like, well, that's awesome. You're my friend and I want to help you out. My other friend told me about this concept called bank on yourself. Mm-hmm. And, he's like, I wouldn't say maybe an expert, but he's always interested in like personal finance issues. He's like obsessed with paying off his physical therapy student loan debts and everything that is like a huge struggle for him. And so I kind of trust his advice to a certain respect. And he wanted me to look into getting a whole life insurance policy so that I could, quote, bank on myself. And so just based on that, I was like, oh, you just started at this big life insurance company. Let's get on a phone call with your supervisor and let's see if you guys can sell me on a whole life insurance policy.
You actually said sell me? That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I was like, and he called and told me that. I was like,
John,
he was so excited.
Look, I'm doing something good for my financial future. Aren't you proud of me?
And I was like, no, that's terrible. Like, don't do it.
So I was like, damn. So what I should have done is like go on a bike ride, enjoy the outdoors on a beautiful Friday afternoon. Instead of having this call about life insurance.
And you could have worked on your financial plans for the future, too. And, this is all my opinion. I know I'm going to get a bunch of hate from the people I even sometimes rely on for referrals for saying this. But so he was talking about whole life insurance policies, right? Which I don't have the license to discuss exactly how that works. But the general idea is that you have a rate term life insurance policy, which is the kind that you probably actually want to get if you have a family.
I've got one.
Good. Okay. That one's good because he's got a little daughter, and if he dies unexpectedly, I want to help take care of her, but I don't want to provide the money to take care of her. That's your job. But the point is that the whole life insurance, they have wrapped in an investment product which acts a lot like a high yield savings account. It doesn't gain money anything like a really good growth stock mutual or an index fund or something like that.
Got those.
But it has some tax advantages, and they really sell those tax advantages hard. And I won't get too much detail, and I'm not sure I will explain it correctly. The real but is, you need to be already maxing out your 401k or your Roth IRA before you really get to any benefit there. And the whole life, Dave Ramsey has a bunch of good videos about this, but the whole life rate of return is just very low. There are some niche situations, like very high middle six-figure income earners a year,
not me
with
yet.
Not working spouses or something. There's a special reason that might be useful, but for like the vast majority of people it's sold to or who talk about it, it's nowhere close. And if you watched our first interaction, we're talking about him starting his own business. So to me, other than keeping an emergency fund to keep his household and his business rolling, every single dollar you have should go into your business.
Yeah.
Okay. Your friend said invest on yourself. Well, don't invest on the ticket that you're going to die someday. Invest on your own business and ability to generate wealth.
Like the thing I actually understand, at least from the perspective of the fact that I'm helping people.
Yeah. Well, you know that if you work on somebody, they will gladly give you money.
Yeah.
That's okay. Nobody should feel bad about that. That is you perform an individual professionalized service as a physical therapist, and people give you money for it.
Yeah.
Right now, we're struggling with the whole health insurance and how he's going to deal with that with his business and stuff like that is an ongoing conversation. But primarily, you want to be treated, like a someone who does massages or a dentist or whatever, and you provide a service, you get paid.
Yeah.
One way or the other, we can, there's details, and then the second thing you were telling me right after you just said it again, right after I talked about the whole life, like, why would you even do that before you're maxing out your 401k, which I'm not an expert in that either, but I think maxing it out is like putting away 25 grand a year or something if you're a married couple.
Okay. So,
which
again, so I wouldn't say I'm maxing it out, but I'm putting I'm like doing 10%.
You're doing 10% into a 401k?
Yeah.
That's really high.
Okay, see,
I'm not mad.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily
bad.
Like,
I just, how many of us out there are just like operating on, let's say, a wives' tale that is propagated somewhere and propagated by someone else, and then we click buttons on our, on my paychecks or AD, all these little HR apps. It's like, well, okay, like I don't know what else. Like how else to strategize this money. So it's like,
for the record, I had no idea he was putting anywhere like 10% away. I would have been like, dude. So, and the reason it's it's like, so the 401k is more and more helpful to people. Putting retirement money away is more helpful to somebody as their income goes up, because the point of the 401k itself is, instead of claiming this $10,000 of income this year, I'm going to put it in this special box. I don't pay taxes in it. And then if I take the money out under the right circumstances later, it grew tax-free, and I might not even have to pay taxes when I take it out, or I'll pay a lower tax rate then. Now that hits you hard once you start making more than 100 grand a year, especially a lot more than 100 grand a year, to the point where if you're making over 100 grand a year, especially if you're in the 2-3s, if you put aside like 6%, and then a company doing like a 25% match on that 6% is kind of a normal thing. So you put away 6%, it actually saves 8%, but since you were going to pay 50% taxes on that money anyways, it almost feels like nothing.
Fuck.
That's where it gets super useful. But when if you're making $50,000 a year, your tax rate is maybe 30%, but also that money off to the side is really important to your daily or to your daily operations, your monthly budget with your family. And again, invest in yourself. You're trying to launch your business.
Yes.
So we're gonna stop.
Okay.
We're gonna stop that.
So I'll bring it down to my employer matching amount, which is like 3.5 to 4%.
Yeah, probably at most.
Okay.
And then you may want to, when you're launching this business, it's whatever, if you want your family and business emergency fund to just be that money you already put away, that's fine. But if you're just counting on that for retirement as somebody who's trying to build a business, I would say even like talk to your accountant about harvesting it back into your business.
Wow.
And that's
even
my opinion.
Even with the penalties.
Talk to your accountant about that.
All right.
I didn't say automatically.
Okay, yeah, but there are penalties to taking out stuff from your 401k. Duh. But yeah, it's like, I would just say, my concept of it is like, I'm not going to touch that at all. And so I just basically try to operate like, I don't try to pretend like I have this nut to go off of if things get a little uncomfortable. I try not to even think about it. So it's nice to know that if shit did get maybe more than uncomfortable, that there would be a situation where it would be good to draw upon it.
Well, let's talk about a way that you could draw upon it now, theoretically. And again, I'm not this kind of accountant. Check with your tax people, but whatever. My understanding is that at least this year, if you claim you have a COVID-related financial hardship, and the definition to that is very broad. The definition of that is basically you being able to explain how it affected you. But again, check with your accountant. You can take money out of your 401k. I think the cap is $100,000. And then I don't believe that there's a penalty at all, other than you have to actually pay the taxes. But they even made a special provision, the taxes you didn't already pay.
Right.
And they even made a special provision, I believe, that you're only going to be taxed on 1/3 of it every year over the next 3 years. And if you happen to put all of it back before the end of that window, you'll even get refunded the taxes you paid.
Damn.
Which is pretty nice. Cool. It's like a
nice.
way to borrow free money from yourself.
Okay.
Is the idea on that. But more importantly to what you're trying to do growing your business and helping that go along, whatever it means. I don't actually know what you need to buy, operate, and move forward. You should be thinking about the money you have in two categories. Like, hey, so does having this chunk of money that could make all of my household bills work for 6 months, whatever, does having that make me feel way more comfortable to jump off the ledge and have no income for a few months to start my business?
Yes.
That's a super good reason to have it.
Right.
So you should think about that as money you can use, not money you want to use. That's like what I think about the retirement plan. That's how I think of it as a business owner. And the other place that I think about that is, if I have a plan that's going to double my income, hopefully, my plan anyways, but it's not unrealistic. And I think this is close to what you're thinking. If I have a plan to double my income every year for the next 8 years, why would I take a percentage of my income now when some of that could be used to make sure that goal is successful?
Okay, fair enough.
Does that make sense?
That does make sense, yeah.
Because I was actually talking to a wonderful young lady, and I think she wanted to start like a food cart related business. And she was asking me about, there's an app, I guess, called Acorn that like helps people invest directly into the stock market at like really low dollar amounts. And she was asking me about that, if I thought it, if I was, she almost asked me if like I was proud of how much money you were putting in. And I told her almost the exact same thing. I told you, like, you have a plan to double your income every year for the next several years, and you need capital to do that. Why would you be giving anyone else your money? Because fundamentally what the stock market is actually for, I know people misunderstand it or misuse it in a bunch of ways, but what the stock market is for is a company asking for money to fund their business plan. That's what it's really for. And if you have your own company and business plan you want to push forward, why are you funding somebody else's?
Fair enough.
And I'm not telling people to never have a retirement fund. Don't get me wrong, but I personally believe, and it's what I'm doing, so if I'm wrong, I'll be wrong with, if you follow me and I'm wrong, we'll be wrong together and really sad. But I think that any energy and money and capital that I can shove towards my business growth goal is going to have a better ROI than on like a really good growth stock mutual fund, 8% a year, just kicking butt, a little bit of up and down over time or a lot sometimes. But that's just kid stuff compared to doubling a business.
I think what this feeling that I'm having now is like these features of being an employee and having let's say coworkers and managers and business owners around you, that the appearances, everyone's going along with this system. These are the accoutrements to adult life that you need to be successful. You must have a 401. You must be investing in your 401k. You must have this type of health insurance plan for your family. You need to operate this way with this high overhead. And if you don't, you're not going to be successful. These other bad things are going to happen to you. And not to say that you should do, you should enter into like your own way of operating willy nilly. But it's like if you have something that has promise, that like you're able to meet a need in the if you're able to like help people in a way that is somewhat specialized, maybe what you have to offer is more than what you are as an employee. Yeah,
well, I mean, all of education, more or less, and common societal pressures kind of push everybody into being, the most useful labor stock possible for entrepreneurs. And then almost nobody teaches entrepreneurship. Right? And entrepreneurship is the basic definition. It's not like you're not an evil capitalist pig. I hate it when people say anything like that. But what you are is you're trying to connect opportunity with the ability to get it done. So, people need firewood. If you're an entrepreneur, you try to figure out a way to connect people who could provide the firewood to the people who have it or who need it. And just like that. So being your own business owner is terrifying and powerful, and one of the weird things that you learn, and that systems are not set up to make it easy to be a small business owner. Like, you know, I do lending, and if you have an hourly wage or a salary and a W-2, oh man, it's easy to get your loan done, and it's simple and it's explainable. But they pay the highest taxes. If you're W-2, you pay the highest taxes per percentage of your income. And when you're have your own business, unfortunately, the lending thing, I mean, I do this for people all the time. It's not impossible, but it's way more complicated to get a loan for somebody who owns their own business. Like, it easily takes me, you know, an easy loan, just because I do home loans, an easy loan honestly probably takes me 1 to 2 hours to set up. And I have other people helping me, so there's more labor. That's not it. But somebody who's self-employed with a business, you know, with one business, a lot of business owners are multiple business owners, because once you get good at it once, the opportunities keep rolling. Easily takes me 4 hours. Wow. Like more than double the time on the one fact of income.
Right.
And there are other facts always, but it's really interesting to me how downplayed business ownership is. And I think one of the reasons for that is just about every level of society with wealth is a business owner. Even like everything down from like an oil company to the newspaper down the street to like the national news chains or whatever, they do not want to preach to their employees that they could set up their own shops.
Yeah, and we all, you know, love, support, and love to like be a part of the individuals who have been successful. There's so many prominent examples. Like we just drank Black Rifle coffee.
We did just drink Black Rifle coffee.
And that's why, you know, we're just like so witty today. But you know, we didn't have like, you know, Folgers or whatever. Like, these guys set up their own business, and like it's kind of like, I don't know, somewhat transparent who they are. Or like, we might read some national papers and news sources, but we also pay attention to independent journalism, and they're operating like, you know, out of their homes with their friends on the internet. And
we just watched a music video that an artist / newsreader made, and the music video is very moving.
All independent, and it's like, I think those examples are, you know, it's inspiring. It's like, oh, this is something we're not getting inside of the major institutions. And I think it's inspiring, like, to be, you know, like, how can I do that in my own role, let's say as a physical therapist, as a healthcare provider.
You mean there wasn't like a business management class as part of your how many years and how many dollar post-college degree?
Let's say $110,000 postgraduate degree.
Ooh.
Yeah, and no, there was one class about private practice. But in the academy, my professors were all non-business owners, non-entrepreneurs, and all had basically been researchers in universities and then worked for university medical programs. And so the information we got was never overlaid with, you know, this is how you are in the room with a real person who their ability to come to see you as a patient is also dependent on their economic situation and their expectations on what they're going to get out of this.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I got into physical therapy as a practitioner, I was struck fairly quickly with I felt that I was already being taken advantage of by the situation that I was being put in between what my employer needed, what the insurance company, healthcare apparatus needed for us to get paid, and then what the patient in front of me needed to get well.
Yeah.
And I think beyond that, what my vision was is for that person to not just return to some semblance of wellness, but to like be better than before, which being inside the healthcare system is not, there's not a system to reimburse for that.
Right. Yeah, and it's especially with healthcare, it's like there's the patient and their needs and their financial ability are totally real. And then it's almost like there's a first party, second party. It's almost like there's a third and fourth party.
Yeah.
Like there's all sorts of, and I can't imagine any great world where there's no regulations. Like, I think that's silly. But there's this huge regulatory body that says a bunch of things about what you can and cannot do. And then there's also like a fourth body which has almost governmental like powers over you of the insurance company.
Yeah.
That like literally says like you can't write reports that way and if you don't want to get paid. You can't do all of these things if you want to get paid.
Yeah.
And one thing that blew my mind, but and maybe you could say a couple of good words about, not that you can even offer it as a service, but there's a technique that you have done and are trained in called, I believe it's like dry needling. And for the people who hate woo, and acupuncture is a very high woo activity. I'm not saying that it never works or doesn't do anything, but I think that if you believe that every single part of acupuncture is supported by medical evidence, I think you're crazy.
Well, I think
but
the
you
first
do dry needling, and
that's
is
a
that
skill
allowed in
that-
Oregon?
It's not. I was able to do it in other states that I practiced in, and it was a great treatment for patients that were appropriate for it. And let's say as a treatment that has some evidence behind it, but maybe not a whole lot. I would say it's just interesting that going across state lines, like you have all this interplay between like different professions that want to own certain treatments that might benefit the patient, but because I happen to have a physical therapy license, and in this state, acupuncturists are, they have their, let's say their
Political
territory.
power.
Well, each, and this is probably where the healthcare system is like, it's pitting professionals against each other, and I don't even think that's necessary, but it's like the way acupuncturists view the body and how they help people is different than how I view the body and help people, and it's just one example. Like, I can't provide a trigger point dry needling treatment to my patient because the acupuncturist board decided when this treatment started to become popular that they were going to lobby the state health boards and legislature to make sure that physical therapists could not do this treatment because their argument was that we don't have the necessary training to do this.
But you went to a university and got a PhD level thing that included that training.
I would say yes. I have adequate training to know where appropriately to do, a treatment that is being done successfully in other states with and seeming no ill consequences.
And I'm gonna try to, for everybody here, describe to the best of my knowledge. Tell me if I get something like really wrong. What this dry needling is. So if you've seen the videos of acupuncture where they use those just tiny needles and place them into the body, you're using the same physical tool, right?
Yeah, same acupuncture needle. Yeah,
so same acupuncture needle, and then you're specifically trying to put it in places that it's a little hazy how that actually works, but it physically and dramatically makes a muscle react when you touch it with that needle.
Yeah,
right?
It's basically like accelerating the effects of a deep tissue massage or, what we call, soft tissue manual therapy in physical therapy. And it's different than my understanding of what acupuncturists do is, they place needles like at a small, few millimeters under the skin. and so the treatments are different. I mean, it's just interesting as an example, like how I think the healthcare system it almost profits from having, well-meaning professionals get into these turf wars, which, and I think after being in the system for 7 years now, it's when you're in the room with a professional and what they care about is helping people, and they feel that you're there to help people, those turf wars go away, and you're just surrounded by an interest in helping the patient, and that's a lot less likely when you are needing to set up marketing and have a clearly defined role for yourself.
Yeah.
That only uses certain tools to help people, instead of, I would say, having an overarching curiosity in helping the person in front of you with the problems that they're presenting.
Yeah, and
instead of just being like a technician.
These disputes between professional groups get absurd.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to take any side because people hate me, but, there was a big dispute in the Oregon ports over whether or not the longshoreman union or the electrician union got to plug in the boxes on the ship that keep things cool.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, big dispute over that.
All hardworking people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say whose job that should be, but
it shouldn't be an argument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And humans compete, so I think that's just what happened. It gets more absurd when you hear things about, like, there's they're doing work on a dam, and it's the electricians and a couple other unions. I don't know why I keep naming electricians. I guess I like electricity, who knows. But like, they had to dig a trench, and there was negotiations over how many hours representatives from different unions got to work the backhoe.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think it kind of brings us full circle to where we started, where it's like, everyone's got their band of expertise, and, it's like I'm interacting with my mortgage broker, with my friend who is now working for a big life insurance company. I'm a physical therapist. There's all these different people that are trying to find ways to help people and feed their families, and depending on kind of like where, what information you have and maybe what your biases are based on that, it's like, it's really easy to forget, like, okay, what are my needs? Like, or even just to stop and think about, like, or how to contextualize, like, what are my needs? What are my true goals outside of maybe how this person is, even with good intentions, trying to fit me into a box that maybe might not help me make a big transition that would make my life better in many aspects.
Yeah, we were talking about, like, running your own business, that internecine, you can never go too far past what the regulators want you to do.
Yeah.
For better or worse. But if you're running your own business, especially if you're doing, if you're the boss, you're the only one in the room with the patient, and the patient's paying you and good with that. Not saying anyone's going to do anything wrong or that's not allowed, but at that point, you have a lot more degrees of freedom to serve them.
Yeah. Right.
That's just the truth. As opposed to, you're probably pressed down by the insurance companies far more than the state regulators, I would guess, as far as your freedom of movement.
Well, I mean, it's funny because, like, I can say that my cash pay, the patients that pay me cash for service without insurance, we get them better faster, and they seem to do better long term when we follow up. That injury seems to be resolved, and I think there's also some perverse incentives that patients have that have health insurance. They want to use that service as much as possible. Maybe it prevents them from being well faster, and so I would think about that. If you are so sure that having health insurance or like really high dollar per month health insurance is the best thing for you.
Yeah, and Yeah, and you know, I don't want to get like political, but the two subsequent things the two big things people disliked most about the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare were that it decreased the ability to have what people call like catastrophic coverage, because there was a greater ability. It was nothing about our health system is perfect. So so like if anyone says like it was great before, no, it was terrible before, and it's terrible now too.
Yeah.
But it was like you could get a policy that basically was just super genericizing it. If something terrible happened and you were way past $10,000 in bills a year, you were done paying for that. The health insurance took over. But because that was a super rare event, the monthly payment could be very small. Yeah. Where most healthcare now it's really prepaid healthcare. Yeah. Like we're setting aside, I don't know what the number is, but like $500 to $800 a month, and then we're acting an insurance company to basically do what I could just hand him. Yeah. And that's not super helpful. And wrapped into that is the catastrophic stuff, which I'm very glad for. Yeah. But I wish I could purchase them separately. Right. And honestly, back to whole life and term life insurance policy, this is almost what we're talking about. Yes. To me, I think that whole life is kind of pushing together two things that don't match. Because in some ways, it's a tax sheltered way of saving and investing money that doesn't do a great job of it, but exists, right? And then it's the term benefit. The death, and then there's the death penalty benefit part, which is, you know, really it's kind of funny because people talk about it as part of investing, and I mean it is and it isn't. And what I just think about it with it that way is like I'm not planning in my financial plan for me to die. It, you know, isn't part of, because it doesn't matter how much money I have when I die. Right. But it does matter that there's enough to minimally take care of my family. Yeah. And that's a good way. We should probably close it out at that, because this is getting long. But hey, if you love this, I'm gonna see if I can do these conversations sort of as a Saturday thing. Let me know what you guys think. Have an awesome day.
Thanks, John.
Bye.
See ya.